He starts to say something and you feel annoyed. The little things drive you crazy and you find you don't seem to like each other much anymore. Resentment can be an all too familiar emotion for couples. It can creep into marriages gradually, even the best of them, and have devastating consequences. Resentment is that association that we make between something that happened in the past, a stress event, and our partner. And so what happens is there's a residue. It's a residue of that stress event. And now when you look at your partner, you feel resentment. What you feel is a residue of that cortisol, that stress event from before. Okay, so while it can seem like resentment is never ending, there are ways to reconcile your relationship with your partner and feel good with each other again. So I'm going to give you some techniques that will help you and your partner overcome resentment in your marriage. My name is Mario Chet, and I am a relationship repair coach. I've been helping people for over a decade, thousands of people, to save their marriages, even when their partner wasn't a willing participant. So number one of the biggest areas that there's resentment and how we take it out is what we call disappearance. All right, so let me tell you what disappearance is. For human beings, what happens is that we communicate things, we communicate our upsets. And sometimes when we communicate our upsets and they're not received by the other person, then it creates frustration for us. So we send that signal out, and that signal isn't received by the other person, then it comes back to us and we now feel like we have to magnify that signal. So one of the reasons resentment in that relationship continues on is because simply that the other person wasn't getting that communication about what was wrong for them. If you can simply get the resentment, if you can get that they're resentful, then guess what happens? They no longer have to send that out to you again. And we call that disappearance. You know why? Because it disappears the upset. It disappears the resentment. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to give it to you step by step. Number one, you're going to get what they're saying. This in psychology is called reflection, right? So we're going to reflect back to them exactly what they're saying, okay? This is really important, and it pings the brain, the neocortex, right? So it's going to say, oh, he really understood what I was saying. She really got what I was saying here. Number two, acknowledge their emotion. You gotta acknowledge the emotion. You gotta acknowledge their experience. Why? Because it actually pings this. It pings the heart. It pings the subconscious. And it's actually answering the question, do you really understand how this made me feel? So you say, and you get that second, you get the emotion. And then lastly, in that moment of flux that they're in, guess what we're gonna do? We're now going to acknowledge their pure intention. Now, when they're saying what they're saying, there's what they really want, because in every single complaint, there's a pure intention. Your partner says to you, "You're a narcissistic jerk and all you care about is yourself." Well, you're like, Mario, what do I do with that? Number one, get what they're saying. So you're gonna say, hey, I really got that you feel like I've been selfish in our relationship. Number two, now you want to get their emotion. And I get that you're frustrated with the way that things have gone. And then number three, their intention. What do they really want? And I really understand that what you want more than anything is that you want to be in a relationship with someone who's got your back, who's watching your six, and who you never have to worry about that with. That literally shifts it and takes the resentment out. Now they don't have to send that signal anymore. Number two, cleanup. Now, cleanup is a big deal. Let's talk about cleanup for a second. Now, cleanup conversations, like that cleanup communication, is gonna make such a big difference in your relationship. Let me tell you why. Because if you have resentment in your relationship, what you really have is an accumulation of that toxicity. Like LA. You've been in LA when there's smog? Yes, it's just like that. It seems like there's just this smog in your relationship and it's stinking up the whole thing. We got to take out that long-term toxicity. We got to take out that residue. And the way that we do that by really taking 100% ownership. So first thing you got to do is you got to say to them, I get that I've been being a jerk. If you've been being a jerk, right? Or wherever else you can be responsible. Automatically, everybody wants to hear that. No one's going to say, stop telling me why you're wrong for the things you did. And so what's going to happen is the moment that you take responsibility, the moment that you own it, where you could be responsible, don't lie about it, be straight. There are things that you and I can be responsible for. Hey, I didn't listen to you when you were talking to me. And then I stopped caring about who you are. That's a way that you can take responsibility. All right, so the moment that you do that, and then what you're going to do after that is you're going to get how that really does impact life. The moment you do that, it begins to clean up. But before you finish that cleanup, it's so important that you make a promise. And in that promise, you make a promise to them because it's got to turn the thing around. So in that cleanup, by taking it out, you suck all the negativity out of the room. You suck it all out. And then you got to put something in the room. You're going to put in, hey, this is my promise to you. The next time that you share something that bothers you, I'm going to listen. And then you'll keep that promise. So that's how you clean up the relationship. So number 3, okay? You've got to get rid of that long-term toxicity. And so this is why we call this method detox dose, because you've got to detoxify the relationship, take out the stress so that you can begin to create the happy hormone. You cannot do it before. You detoxify by listening for, one of the biggest skills you can do is be listening for where that toxicity is showing up in your relationship, so you can detoxify, you can take out all of that angst, all of that anger, all of that upset. Then you can begin to now trigger happy hormones. So again, what are happy hormones? Happy hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, D.O.S.E, right? That's an acronym for dose. And what do they do, and why are they important to you? Well, they're the hormones that are released when you feel like you're in love. And so I tell people all the time, you can save your marriage and you can create a perpetual honeymoon. You can be that 85-year-old couple who's holding hands in the park like lovesick teenagers again. And I promise you, you can, because it comes down to chemistry. Are you dosing your partner? Are you creating that, are you triggering that happy hormone in them over and over again? Well, if you do that intentionally, if you can do that over and over again, you're going to win in the game called marriage. So detoxifying your relationship, taking out the resentment, and then putting in D.O.S.E is going to prevent any of that resentment from coming in, and also fortify your relationship so that you can have a lifelong partnership. It's like putting lightning in a bottle. Think about it. If every time that something happens in your relationship doesn't work, you take it out immediately, and then you know exactly that lightning in the bottle was your magic, the magic that you guys created inside your relationship. And if you can go ahead and you can trigger that at will, then you absolutely can have that relationship that you want for the rest of your life. You can actually create magic ongoingly. Everything that I've talked about here, even especially this last part, this creates subconscious actions. It literally makes the other person want to be a certain way with you. So don't worry, it doesn't mean that you get to be a doormat or you get to be a punching bag. What happens is when you execute on all these things, what it makes them want to do is makes your partner want to give you more, want to give you that thing back. It prompts reciprocity. Overcoming resentment in a marriage is vital for happy relationships and building a strong foundation. You can work through any challenges and focus on growing together as a couple instead of drifting apart. So next week, I will be launching a video on saving your marriage when you feel like your husband hates you. Stay tuned. I'll see you there.